everyone. It is your next door neighbor, Dara, here for Dear Hallmark. And this is your safe space where you can come in and we can talk about all things Hallmark Channel. And normally I'm talking about these Hallmark Channel movies by myself, but today I am not by myself. I am joined with someone who's involved in the process of making these Hallmark movies, some such as Project Christmas Wish. I don't know if y'all heard about that one. Love Strike Twice, a sleeper hit in my opinion. And he's also responsible for three of the movies that I want to talk to him about for this year's lineup for Countdown to Christmas. Everyone, please welcome director Mr. Jeff Beesley. Jeff, welcome to the home of Dear Hallmark.
Hello, glad to be here.
Awesome. We are happy to have you. So, Jeff, I want to start off with an icebreaker question for you. If you had a wish that was granted where you could bring one fictional character to life, which fictional character would you choose and why?
Probably the kid from Project Christmas Wish because her so much, and I would love to see what she's doing now because Avery Peters played that part, and that was Avery's first part ever. She'd never been on a film
Wow.
set, and I mean, she was probably one of the most mature actors on set. She was wonderful, and that was a bit of a sleeper hit too. That one kind of caught fire after it aired. It was on Movies and Mysteries, and the spirit of that actor and that character, I just to this day I often think about as the kind of a crowning achievement in my career that we got to do that.
That was such a beautiful movie. Amanda Schull, she's one of my favorites because I watched her in Suits when it was airing, not this resurgence that it's going through now, but I watched it back like while it was airing. And she's always been one of my favorites. So this was my first time seeing her in a non-Suits context. And so the movie was just so beautiful. And then her opposite Travis Van Winkle, I mean, it was so great. It was so great. I know for me, I've been on a Lord of, oh, sorry. Yeah.
So that was a COVID movie. That was like shot in the darkest depths of COVID, and that was the was when actors had to come in, and not only did we have to convince them to come to Winnipeg, but they had to sequester in a house for 2 weeks, self-isolate for 2 weeks before they could even emerge and start their fittings and rehearsals and whatever else we did. So Amanda and Travis were such troopers to come up here and Winnipeg, a place they'd never been, and sit in a strange apartment or house for 2 weeks before the production even started. So uh, yeah, that was a weird time making Hallmark movies during COVID because it was, I mean, these movies are hard enough to make with the restraints we have at the best of times, let alone with masks and face shields and all the rest of that stuff that went on. So
Yeah.
I have a very special place in my heart for Amanda Schull for putting herself through that and coming up and joining us on that movie.
How many movies did you make during that time where you had to go, if you can remember, like where you had to go through that process with, because that's insane.
4 or 5, 6 maybe. And you kept thinking it was going to get easier, and then there'd be another, outbreak or whatever they call it, and we go back to these things. And then the vaccine came out, and it just went on and on and on. And then all of a sudden, it just sort of stopped, and now we're kind of back to normal. I think there's a lot of people are still a little shell shocked over the whole experience, but when I look back at the movies, it's there's really no excuses for any of them. Like none of them were terrible, not just mine, but in general. I mean, that's just goes to show that people can persevere and work through adversity and because the viewers at home don't care if we had to wear masks or test every day. They just want to tune in for 2 hours and have something good happen. So, yeah, I think 4 or 5 movies, and I'm glad that period is over.
Do you remember that first movie where you didn't have to do that you kind of got back to normal, as you said, and just the relief that you felt? Like, do you remember what movie that was?
What movie was that? I don't. The first time, I think even some people were still wearing masks. It was so common, and I don't remember what it was. I've tried to block all that and just look forward and not behind.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I can totally understand. So, Jeff, can you talk to us a little bit about how exactly did you get into directing and what your journey kind of looked like, becoming the director that you are today?
Well, I went to film school in Regina, Saskatchewan. That's where I'm from. My hometown is in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, and I went to the University of Regina's film program. And I've said this before. I was very lucky because I was coming out of film school in the late '90s when independent film was very cool. There was a lot of money around um, for independent film and whatnot. And one of my professors, Richard Kerr, told me, he said, there's two ways to do it. The first way is you get a job on a film crew and you work your way up, and eventually one day you'll be allowed to direct. Or the second way is you get out and you raise your own money, you find your own means, and show people that you're a director. And he basically said, in all my years of doing this, I've never seen anyone through the ranks be a director. So I just right up took his words to heart, and my first few movies were $10,000 movies, $40,000 movies, and just continually. The only job I've actually really had on a film set is director, and that was from the get go by design, right? And I really not really wanted to do anything else. So yeah, and
Wow.
it's just luck and a lot of not a lot of luck. I think you create your own luck, but it's just been a progress. You kind of see every year things get a little better, or you get set back, and you just the old song says, "The dream never dies, just the dreamer," right? So
Yeah.
get up every day, saying to myself, director, and keep directing.
So would little Jeff be surprised that that's what you're doing now? Like, was the goal always director for you?
It really was. I didn't really have another option. I mean, I'm not,
Mm.
my dad was a dentist and my grandpa was a dentist, and I was not going to be a dentist. That's for sure. So, no, I thought it was kind of like this or bust, right? So,
That's good. So can you talk about, because I rattled off just a little bit of your Hallmark filmography, but can you talk a little bit the one thing that you love the most about directing, and specifically because this is a very niche genre of of movies. So can you talk a little bit about what you love the most about directing?
well, for Hallmark, it's the people. Um, every movie is different with a whole new group of people, characters, and real people, and I just couldn't be more, blessed with the amount of people and good quality people that I've worked with over the last 5, 6 years with Hallmark. Just when you think, oh, this movie will never be better than this one, the next one seems to somehow be better in its own way. And I just have a Rolodex of just like really, really talented, thoughtful, empathetic people that I call friends to this day. Some that I've got to work with a couple times, like Janelle Parrish. I did 2 movies with her now. I just finished a movie with Brooke Dorsey, and the first time we worked together was one of my first films for MTV 20 years ago. And so, the reunion of Brooke and I, uh, much older, or me anyway. She looks the same. Uh, yeah, and you know what? It was funny with Brooke. She hadn't changed a bit. She still had the same youthful, beautiful spirit, and it was a really special time. So to answer your question, I would say I love the people, and because these movies come out so fast, and you're kind of a big deal for 24 hours, and then the next one comes on. You better learn to enjoy the experience of making movies, and enjoy going to work every day and cherish it, because if you're waiting for Emmys or a 10 gun salute or a big check in the mail, those don't come. So you better enjoy the process of making them, which I certainly do.
So, speaking of the process, what would you find is the most challenging thing about directing that most people aren't privy to?
Well, it's always trying to match the form and the content. So depending on what kind of script comes to me, what kind of shape it's in, what the needs of the script are, as to what we have available to us financially, what's realistic. There's so many times you get scripts that talk about, concerts in Central Park. And they're just they're very, and thank goodness for writers and their great creativity. But then it comes down to definitely to try to make the concert in Central Park look realistic and not terrible. It's often just trying to find that balance of, what is the essence of the story and how can we, you know, through filmmaking tell it in the possible way. And that's the best challenge too. I mean, that's what I love to do is figuring out how we got, like I've said before, every one of these movies basically has the same rules, 15-day prep, a 15-day shoot, and 15-day post we're around for. Everyone gets the same rules. So it's not like some movies are getting 30 days or, and we just have to sort of we have to play the cards that are dealt to us and make the best possible movie.
As a director, what would you say makes a good story visually?
Again, it's funny because sometimes, when you look at, I think the four movies I've directed this year, I mean, they're completely different films. And although I think they have sort of my sense of humor and sort of a bit of my style to it, there's a few tricks that I pull out for all my movies. But that's what's exciting is that I don't have to make. I mean, I know Hallmark always gets this. It's just a Hallmark movie or a Hallmark, but when you look at the range of movies that've been on the countdown this year, they're all vastly different. They look different. They feel different. They smell different. They're themes and the rest of it. And so, what's exciting for me about working for Hallmark is that I get to make a different movie every time. I'm not expected to sort of regurgitate the same images and the same storyline. I mean, sure, there's obviously a few tropes that we go back to time and again, but like Christmas on Call was a movie about first responders. And so, a lot of people said, oh my God, it looks like an episode of ER, right? That we wanted to give energy and feel and a life to it, right? Where Carol for Two is very much a big Broadway live singing musical, which has got bright Fauvised colors and camera moves a lot. And following Yonder Star, which is coming out Sunday, and I hope everyone sees it because it's wonderful. If I do say so myself, is a very kind of quiet, pretty little movie that's more like, say, in the vein of Project Christmas Wish or something like that. Yeah, so to answer your question, it's basically just what is the content asking for visually, and that's the director's job is to provide that.
That's good. And so you spoke a bit earlier about the thing you love the most about directing is the people. So I think this is a perfect time to talk with you. And I said this a little bit offline, but my theme this year with my guests has been the topic of community and what that looks like in the film industry. And so you're the first director that I've had on this season. So I would love to get to see if your vantage point is different or kind of your perspective just as Jeff Beesley. What does Jeff Beesley say is community for him in the film industry, and what does that look like?
Community for me means having really, really good people around me. Oftentimes, people I feel are smarter than me and more talented than me. I like to be inspired by production, my director of photography or my editor or my producer or whatever. And it's very important for me to surround myself with really smart, caring people. And the last four movies I've done, or I think 8 movies actually, have been with Inferno Pictures, Ian Dimmerman, Lisa Cicchelli, and they're all about, we want the product on camera to match with one off camera. So we try to treat our crews and our visiting cast that come to town like a family, right? They stay in nice places. We go for dinners. We try to make it very, very comfortable for everybody. We don't burn the crew out shooting 14, 15-hour days. We try to make it about their family so that they can go home and actually have a family and the rest of it. So community to me in these movies means, there's an old saying, unless you're like bleeding from the eyeballs, you're not making a good movie. We don't subscribe to that theory. Good movie making is in the planning and the execution. So that's a lot of my job is to make sure things are like planned out perfectly so that when we get there, it's not a, what show at the end of the day, that it's well organized and that everyone leaves Winnipeg, or the people that are here when we shoot say that was hopefully one of my greatest experiences.
Are you, as a director, involved or in communication with the different departments on set while you're in filming? So, like with the costume department or the art department when it comes to like set deck and things like that? Like, are you in, it may not be constant communication, but are you in communication with other departments while filming is going on?
Constantly. Like, I mean, during the pre-production process, I'm working with normally the department heads, like the production designer or the property master or the costume designer. And everything is planned out to the scene. Basically, we know what they're wearing. We have meetings where we're talking about, well, if Brooke's wearing green and John's wearing brown, we want the walls to be this, the lighting's going to be here. This is what the Christmas should look like in the background. It's all planned out. It's not by chance. And then when we're actually on the day shooting, then we'll have what's called the shooting crews. So there'll actually be people that represent each of those departments, but they're like the physical labor that will move the tree or hang the garland or fluff the wardrobe or whatever they need to do, right? But absolutely, we are a team and we are in constant communication.
I love that. So let's get into your vast filmography that I found here because it threw me for a loop. I want to just touch on quickly two of one of my favorite Lifetime Christmas movies that you had the pleasure of directing. The first one is Radio Christmas, which starred Keisha Knight Pulliam and Michael Xavier, who's actually going to be in an upcoming Miracles of Christmas movie this year, next week even. So that's exciting. And you also did Let's Meet Again on Christmas Eve, which starred Kyla Pratt and no stranger to Hallmark as well, Brooke Darnell. So it's still cool that you got to work with people, even though these two were Lifetime movies, but they have experience on Hallmark as well. So can you talk just briefly about your time on those two sets and what the filming process was like for those?
Radio Christmas is a very special film for me because it was my first Christmas movie ever. And
Oh,
I begged to get that job through the producer Howard Bronstein. I was like, Howard, please give me a chance. And finally the network agreed to let me direct one and um it was great. I mean, it was so much fun. She was great. Michael Xavier is actually the top of my list of an actor I want to work with again because I feel like I know so much more about Christmas movies than I did then now. And he's a fellow Canadian, and he's just a real actor, like a really really good actor, good guy, funny. I would love to work with him again, and I've tried several times to work with him. So anyway, I owe a lot to Lifetime. I owe a lot to Howard Bronstein for giving me that shot because it certainly got the ball rolling. And after that, I did two more movies with Kyla Pratt, who is literally one of my favorite people in the world. She's fantastic, funny, lovely. So it was a great experience. It was three great Lifetime movies with great people that sort of got me gave me the Christmas bug. And I think Hallmark took note of that and gave me a shot, and I've been here ever since.
and been here you have. I'm just going to read off just some of your Christmas movies here. Now, y'all, when I tell you Jeff Beasley is not new to this, he's true to this. Listen to this list. So we talked about Project Christmas Wish. We also have To Catch a Spy, which is a one-off mystery. He did Love Strikes Twice. He did my one of my all-time favorites, Just One Kiss. That one blew me away. Pumpkin Everything. We got Made for Each Other, Miracle in Bethlehem, which we have a pattern here in terms of the Bethlehem themes. We got Santa Summit, Never Been Chris, Haunted Wedding, and then this year he did Christmas on Call, Carol for Two, and then following Yonder Star. Sir, my goodness, what a catalog. What a catalog. Can I touch on real quick Just One Kiss? Because I feel like that's in a vein, in a way, with a Carol for Two in terms of the musical element. Can you talk a little bit about your experience directing that movie and what that process was like?
That was the precursor to Just One Kiss, and that was with a producer. That was with Front Street in Vancouver, and a producer, Joe Plager, who I've done I think four movies with now, who's a dear friend. The executive was Aisha Francis, who's wonderful, and it was also my first movie with Nina Wyman. And they were like, "We want a movie. We don't want a Hallmark movie. We want you to like make this a New York, Broadway. We want the whole thing. Like, go for it. Give us a movie." And so I said, "Well, I think the main thing is that." we need to do the music live. And everyone was like, what? You can't. It'll never work. We've tried it. It will never work. It'll never work. And I was like, I just can't stand lip sync. I think that if we plan this out right, we've got Santino Fontana and Mr. Rodriguez, like two of the greatest voices on Broadway. Let's record them singing. So there was a, as you can imagine, a lot of people were worried that it was going to like take too long and kill the days and cost a fortune. But Joey and I came up with a plan and recorded that music live, and it makes the movie. So when we were doing Carol for Two, at least I had a leg to stand on to say, hey, I did this once and it worked. This Carol for Two was a lot more music, and I of course I introduced a live band to it to up the ante, right? Uh,
Absolutely. I had no idea Just One Kiss was live in terms of the singing. That elevates it even more because that was the first movie where it definitely felt theatrical in terms of the quality of it. And that's where I said, "Oh, we're not in Kansas anymore, Toto." When it comes to like Hallmark really making that shift in terms of trying to get away from like the tropey type of Hallmark movies, I was blown away by it. It was done so well. And then speaking of that, with A Carol for Two, that one's definitely in my opinion, I was like the comedy was like, I think that speaks to again just your sense of humor. I laughed out loud so many times during A Carol for Two. And can you just talk a little bit about, you talked a little bit about the music, but just in terms of like the comedy aspect for A Carol for Two and what your vision was for that?
well, I wanted it to be funny. We obviously was a bit of a tip of the hat to Cyrano de Bergerac. Um, I was really surprised at the reaction that the Brad character got. I mean, he didn't get a lot of love, and that was kind of the intention for him not to get a lot of love. And like when you look at, I watch a lot of television as you can imagine, and when you look at like the Kieran Culkin character on Succession, Larry David on Kirby and Thea, there's a lot of those kind of like really irritant characters, and it's probably my fault because I pushed for that Brad to be a bit of an irritant and be of that ilk. But the reaction from the Hallmark fans to him, I was like, woo, maybe pushed it a little far. But um,
I loved it. I'm sorry. He was my one of my favorite characters of the year. Like I
thanks.
make a superlatives list because I'm always down for some ridiculousness and shenanigans, and he was just full of shenanigans. That's how I took it. I'm like, oh, so you're here to really like up the ante,
Yeah,
if you will, and I love that. I called him Cousin Brad. Like I enjoyed that character thoroughly.
a lot of people didn't call him Cousin Brad. But everyone knows a character like Brad, the good-looking, smart talking, but with absolutely no real substance, right? And these people get through in life, and they somehow, weasel their way through everything, and with their looks and charm. And I really wanted to make a character like that, not get what he in the end. I mean, he kind of does. He kind of learns a bit of a lesson in the end, but he wasn't going to get Jenna Claire, and he wasn't going to, that was Jordan was just such a good straight man to all his craziness.
Agreed.
Um,
Agreed.
so I felt the comedy worked for my taste anyway. But and a lot of people do like it. It's just I think some of the traditional Hallmark fans were a little like, "What are we watching here?"
Yeah, yeah. Can you talk about what was a challenging shot for you in making A Carol for Two? Like, was it the live music aspect, or did you guys shoot in a specific place for this to capture the Broadway element of it?
That's an existing restaurant in Winnipeg that we really like the bar and the long layout. But I've got to give my tip of the hat to the art department, productions. John Von Winkle, he created that sign and the stage and the all the little details, the menus, the drinks, all that stuff was all brought in. Um, it was I mean, Just One Kiss was basically voice piano. So that wasn't as complicated as this was because that band that's in Fiore's is all playing live as well. So you're not just dealing with voice, you're dealing with drums, bass, guitar, saxophone. They're all wearing earwigs that gives the tempo so that we're able to cut between different takes, right? The close-ups and the wide shot, whatever. So it was challenging. It was very challenging, but it was worth it because I mean I just think the music in the movie is fantastic, and it was anything good is worth fighting for, and that yes, that was extremely challenging, but worth doing in the end. And, I mean, how good is the last song, right?
It makes me feel like I can sing and I know I can't. Like that's how I know that the movie was good because I wanted to sing along and I know full well I can't sing with the licks. And it's so crazy that that wasn't a real place and that it was the like art department. Like I'm still stuck on that because I think they really captured the essence of like this cozy kind of like community like Broadway. It just and then Stephanie Sy, she was great. Like, oh my gosh, that I wish there was a Fiore's that I could go to
Yeah,
for
right.
real. I
Yeah.
like that was really, really cool. Really, really cool.
That was sort of the concept is we wanted to create a place that people would be like, oh, I'd go there. I'd want to hang out there. And I was just at a place. My son is actually the guitar player in that band, and he's quite a little prodigy. And so we were just at Montreal and went to this place called Upstairs, which is a famous jazz club, and it's got a bit of a Fiore's vibe. And he played there, and these places exist, and they're wonderful.
I love it. We have a jazz club here in Philly called South. That's it's very like very tiny, very intimate. But if anybody is in the jazz space, like they normally come through there. They could play like the Met or the other theaters in the city, but they always kind of make their way through South, which kind of has that jazzy vibe. But speaking of Philly, so Christmas on Call, which was set in Philadelphia, made my little heart go pitter patter. I was like, look, look at my city. Can you talk a little bit about that? We're going from kind of this Broadway theme to now first responders. Can you talk a little bit about what your inspiration and headspace was for that movie?
Well, it very much was a love letter to first responders. That's what we wanted it to be. And Camden Simmons was the exec at Hallmark on that, and she was just like, we want to make a movie about people, the real heroes of Christmas, the people that don't get a traditional Christmas, and it's a love letter to them. And so that script was challenging. It was because there was a lot of plot lines being balanced and it's tough because you're making a show where that's competing against all the procedurals that are on TV, right? And on Hallmark, we don't show blood, we don't show gruesome, we can't show the things that those shows do. So we're kind of at a bit of a disadvantage. So we did the best we could and try to make things exciting. The fire was an element that came late, which was like, well, that would be a good. We can do a fire. No one's, that could work. And fire and kind of made all the storylines connect through that, which I think really worked. But it was fun because it was just something totally different, right? It was just something totally different. And Sarah Canning is amazing, and Sir Darius was wonderful. My first time working with him, and of course I got to get a lot of my the Beesley players, as they say in the movie, Eric Attavale and Adam Hertig, and some of my boys were in it, so that was good.
Yes, yes. I appreciated this movie. I love the chemistry between Darius and Sarah. I saw Sarah in another movie. I think she was in Holiday Road last year. That was my first
Yeah.
time seeing her. So seeing her in this one, and then Darius, I know he's on Holidays on Hallmark Plus, and then he previously worked with Heather Hemmings on A Caribbean Summer. So to see them two together, would never have thought to pair them, but seeing them together, and even in the roles, like him as an EMT, her as a doctor, like I believed it. And so I thought
Yeah.
it was really cool because at first I wasn't sure, but then when I sat and watched it, I was like, you know what, this thing it's really adorable. I really appreciated it, and the Philly aspects that's automatic bias points for me. So I really appreciated that movie. But let's go into one that hasn't aired yet. Following Yonder Star, starring John Brotherton, Brooke Dorsey, no strangers to Hallmark. Can you tell us a little bit? This is a Dayspring movie, so you have you did Miracle in Bethlehem, PA, last year. So
Mhm.
this would be your second Dayspring movie. So can you tell us a little bit about what the movie is and what we can expect?
Well, Miracle in Bethlehem, PA was probably the hardest film I directed for home. just because the material was out really a little outside of what I normally, so outside of my comfort zone. It was very earnest and quiet, and when you read the script, there wasn't a lot of humor in it. And it was, of course, during the strikes, so like the American actors weren't available to us. It was a tough movie to do, and excuse me. So I remember begging the network that could we please get Ben Ayers or someone like Ben Ayers for that part, because we wanted someone really funny. I wanted someone funny that I could try to lift this character with, and they did get Ben, which was fantastic, and Laura, and it was one of those the miracle was is that we were able to take the writing, which was good, nice, earnest writing, but actually find some levity and find some humor and find some real moments between these people. And it's one of those things where you read, like, they share a dance and the baby squawks and interrupts them, and you think of the dance scene in Miracle in Bethlehem. That's like it's a pretty hot little dance scene, dancing to Nora Jones singing about Lord Jesus, etc. So it was just a really nice experience to see that we could take this material and like turn it into something that had some humor and laughs and the rest of it. And that's really a testament to Ben, because he's just a creative comic genius. So anyway, when this one came around and they wanted me to do another Dayspring movie, um, this script was in great shape. Like, really, it was a really, really nice script. And but again, I begged them. I said, "Let's get funny people so we can kind of do what we did with Bethlehem." And I didn't realize they already had Ben planned for another movie, so he was off the table. But they when I found out that they cast Brooke, I was like just over the moon, because I waited literally 20 years to work with her again. And then when I found they cast John Brotherton, I knew his work from Fuller House, and I'd heard what a great, awesome person he was. So I was pretty excited. You know, when you think about a perfect movie for me, this would be as close to it as it's ever been. It was just the locations. We got into locations that normally we don't get into. We got casts that normally aren't available to us. We brought a bunch of new faces in, of people who I've been sort of like keeping my eye on and waiting to give a bigger part to. Amanda Austin is one of them. And it was just one of those things where it all kind of worked. And I think Brooke said, I keep waiting for like the shoe to drop, but nothing's going wrong. Like, we were shooting 10-hour days, and she's like, that's it. I'm like, we're done. And it just was a really magical experience. And the script was so good. They were so good. And yet, we always tried to lift scenes, right? I always tried to give it a little extra. And, John is like the second coming of John Ritter. Like, he is so funny, the things he can do and the way he moves and contorts his body. So he does a little of that in the movie. And like Brooke is, I don't know how old she is, like 40 maybe, and she looks like she's 20 still. I mean, you couldn't have a more beautiful actress to shoot, and wonderful personality. So yeah, and the editing went very well, and I just love this movie. I don't know what it is about it. I just love it, and I can't wait for people to see it.
I can hear it in the way you talk about it, just how much like that movie means to you. So, can you talk a little bit from your perspective what the Dayspring bend on this movie is that kind of makes it a Dayspring movie?
Well, it certainly doesn't shy away from any faith-based themes. These are people that have religion in their heart. This is not a gospel, or this is not a propaganda piece by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, these are people with flaws and problems and things that their faith means something to them, and we don't shy away from it in the show. Kind of a simple.
Yeah, simply put, simply put. So, I want to ask, because we talked about a lot of your movies and including following Yonder Star. What do you think is the through line through all of your movies that make them particularly Jeff Beesley movie? Like, if we see your name in the opening credits, we're going to say, oh, I know this is going to be such and such and such. What would you say that is?
Hopefully funny. Yeah, I'm a comedy director trained by heart. That's kind of what I do, and I certainly try to bring levity and some earned fun and genuine laughs to it. Like, I mean, if you look at Santa Summit, that was pretty raucous and funny, and that was. I think if you put the right people in the right places, and they trust me and they trust the people around them, like magic can happen, and I really believe that. Um, I mean, some of the stuff that John and Brooke came up with, like I wish people could see what take one looked like to take four, like where we take these things from, right? And sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes it's a little bit too. But I certainly want to give the audience some fresh perspectives on the comedy and how people interact with each other, right?
Which movie out of the ones you've done this year, Christmas on Call, Following Yonder Star, and then A Carol for Two, if you could release a blooper reel from one of those movies, which movie would you choose? And then if you could have a director's cut published from
It
one
would,
of those movies, which one would you do?
I would say obviously Yonder Star has like that one. Carol for Two has a lot of really funny stuff that Gino and did obviously. There was a few things in on Christmas on Call, but it didn't lean that far the other. But the fall movie I did, Haunted Wedding, that we cut a 3 hour blooper reel and comedy reel based on what Janelle Parrish and Dominic Sherwood, and there were times where literally we would take 25 takes for them to stop laughing. Like they just could not stop laughing. The ridiculous. It was almost like a Mel Brooks movie at some points. It was so ridiculous. And the crew were laughing, ruining takes at some things that happened. It was ridiculous, but it was ridiculously fun. Like it didn't cost any extra money or anything. It was just really fun. Everyone had such a good time on that. I don't know if you saw that movie or not, but it's pretty crazy.
I've heard nothing but good things about Haunted Wedding. I didn't get a chance to see it, but I've heard nothing but good things. So that again speaks to your pedigree as a director here in the Hallmark universe. So, Jeff, so my last couple of questions for you. I want you to speak first to the Hallmark fans. So we're already have I say a paid interest into these movies during the holiday season. What would you tell us for Following Yonder Star? What can we look forward to with this movie that's a little bit off the beaten path from the Hallmark movies that we've seen before?
You know, it's kind of in my for my 2 cents, it's like the perfect hybrid. I know you read, I of course read some of the comments that fans say and stuff, and they're always lamenting about the older movies and they were so much better whenever or whatever, and some love the new ones. And I think that this movie is like the perfect blend of a classic Hallmark movie with sort of the new generation Hallmark movie with its humor and the rest. I mean, there's kids in it that are just hysterical. It's just that perfect blend of those two styles that I think people are going to. I haven't seen a movie yet on the countdown that quite does what this one does.
And so, opposite that, what would you say to those people who don't have a Hallmark history, but they're like, I really need some fa la 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 from the Hallmark though, and they're kind of leaning towards watching Following Yonder Star this weekend. What would you say that would make them kind of tip over the edge and actually press play on their DVR or on their TV?
The chemistry between Brooke Dorsey and John Brotherton is off the charts. Them together is dynamite. I mean, you want to watch a love story, you want to watch two people like the ultimate love story, this is your movie.
I love it. You sold me, and I'm already a fan. So you you had me at John Brotherton and Brooke Dorsey. You really didn't have to say anything, but I love it. I love it so much, Jeff Beesley. Thank you for coming into the home of your Hallmark and kind of giving us a peek behind the curtain with the movies that we love so much. And so, what I love to do with all my guests is really just have them have the last word. So you can talk about anything you want to talk about, any of your movies. You can talk about Winnipeg. You can talk about college, whatever you want want to talk about in this moment, it is your moment to have. And so I'm going to turn the floor over to you.
I just want to say thank you to you, to all the reviewers, to all the fans, to all the people who love my movies, hate my movies, give us bad ratings on IMDb. It doesn't matter. Just keep watching. Keep watching and stick with us because I think what Hallmark is, it's in my mind, it's like the last of the studios. It's a family run company that puts out its own product every year under its own label with its own brand. And you're not going to love every movie and you may not like some movies, but you know what? There's enough, we're making enough of them that some you're really going to love. And I especially really appreciate your support and viewership. And thank you.
Awesome. Well, you guys, you heard it here first. Be sure to catch Following Yonder Star on Saturday, December 15th. Um,
Sunday.
It's Sunday. No, it is Sunday, right? Because Saturday is the Santa class with Benjamin Ayers. So yes, please be sure to catch it. Please be sure to catch it Sunday, December 15th. Yes, at 8 p.m. on Hallmark Channel. His name is Jeff. I'm Dara, and I'll talk to you guys in the next episode. Ciao, my friends.
Oh.